Hello and welcome back to the Sanibel Online Writers Conference. Our next two presenters are not only accomplished writers, they're heavily invested in helping other writers to both find community and tell their sometimes painful stories. Mahogany Browne is the executive director of Just Media, a media literacy initiative designed to support the groundwork of criminal justice leaders and community members. MJ Fievre is the author of the Badass Black Girl series. She helps others write their way through trauma, build community, and create social change. These two authors and social leaders are here to share what they've learned about writing, about resilience and empowerment. So, would you please join me in welcoming Mahogany Browne and MJ Fievre?
Yay! MJ, I love the theme. I need a t-shirt, a tote bag. I stand. I
Thank
stand.
you. Thank you
Yes.
so much. And I'm so excited to talk to you today because I've been following your career and you're such an inspiration.
Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about that. Let's talk about you as a poet, you as an activist. It's funny, we were backstage and you're so funny. You have such a great sense of humor. And I think that I was a little surprised, but gladly so because um, activism is such there's such seriousness associated with it. It's like you're looking very somber and things have to change, but then in real life, people who are doing activism, they're just like laid back people who understand that the world is made of various individuals. Some people will be serious, some people will be um, humorous. And I'm curious about your take on this and what activism means for you.
Mm. Thank you for that question and also that observation. I think I've been considered a class clown since grade school. Um, when I think of organizing around community and around social justice themes, even my own art, how it's always been a platform for speaking when I was told to be silent. Uh, I'm I'm constantly aware that I may not be funny during the poem, right? I may not be funny during the story. I find joy on the sidelines and in the small spaces, and sometimes in the noise, in the midst of the noise, those moments of silence, you can still find joy there. Um, so I do understand the balance of when it's time to be serious, you have to be, headstrong, face forward, let's go. But I don't want to conflate who I am and forget that part of me. I think the reason that most organizers and activists and protesters and community members that are leading initiatives without a title altogether, they do it so that we can get back to the joy, right? We do it so that we can return to ourselves, we can return to our families, and there's peace there, there's love there, there's laughter, there's silly jokes, there's dance battles, dance revolution, whatever it is, that you have those moments where you get to breathe and just be. And so I try not to lose sight of that, even when I'm in the midst of, here's a moment of great seriousness. I know that this work has to happen so that we can have joy, so that we can have each other, so that we can remain human.
I love the fact that you brought up Black joy. So it's such an important notion. And sometimes I get the question, what exactly is Black joy?
Mm,
And of course, I take people back um, to earlier days when even the simple act of laughter was
mm,
censored. And I think that censorship has taken other forms
mhm.
in recent times where we live in a system that is not always conducive to Black people being able to just enjoy life, but we find ways anyway. Um, I'm curious about your definition of Black joy.
Mm. What is my definition of Black joy? I would say that it's the mundanity. I would say that it's the everydayness. I think that's why there's such a love for series like Atlanta and Insecure and even the 20, like the 20s, there are these moments of you just living your life with your friends, and it doesn't have to be this harrowing story of how you survived, you know, living in the crack era, or walking through the hood. Yeah, that happens, but there's also laughter there. There's also cartoons, there's also cereal, there's, you know, there's sibling rivalry, there's you know, hairstyle wars, there is friendships that begin and end and begin again. And so I think the joy in Blackness is allowing Blackness to live and thrive without us only noticing it when it's taken away too soon, when it's, you know, considered something that is bad or poor you. Or there doesn't have to be fracture and destruction in Black life for you to see it, to enjoy, you know, the people who are living it every day. And you don't necessarily have to be a consumer, right, of
Mhm.
our Blackness, for our Blackness to be necessary, to be valid.
This is so true. And that made me think about the reasons why I wrote Badass Black Girl. Someone asked me, well, why not just say Badass Girl? Why is it Badass Black
Mm,
Girl? And I had to explain why. I had to explain that when I was growing up, it I read a lot of books about empowerment, about just being human. And I always felt that I was not the reader that the writer had in mind.
yeah.
And all the movies that I was watching, most of the shows, of course, there were some exceptions.
Hmm.
Whenever Blackness was brought up, it was always in the context of history, of slavery, of changing the state of affairs. It was never about Black people just being people.
Mm,
And in those books, my reality was not expressed. And I wanted a book for Black girls, for Black young women, that was just about how to be a Black person in
yes.
America. And
Yes.
that means just in your everyday life, even when Blackness is not at the center. Of course, it's going to be because we are Black, it is our reality. But a book about just being happy,
Hmm.
being in the world. And I think that it goes back to the definition that you gave about eh, Black joy, just being.
Just
Well,
being.
yeah, in
Just being. And I mean, you I love that you, I don't love that you were asked that question, because that's happened before, right? With me as well. When I did Black Girl Magic, the poem, the first thing that someone said in the comment section after it went viral, which I suggest to everyone, do not read the comments. Alas, I did. And the first thing that was said was, what about White Girl Magic? And it blew my mind. Not really, but a little bit, because I said, here's a moment of just a moment of reclamation. I'm just happy that I am me in this day and age, when you want me to lighten my skin, when you want me to straighten my hair, when you want me to fix my nose, my lips, my size, you want to make fun of me, I'm the butt of the joke, yet you kind of like my swag, so you want to put some of those things on. So here I am, just accepting myself. Black Girl Magic is about accepting whatever your Black girl self is, right? There is no one way to be a Black girl. There is no one way to exist as a Black girl, to be loved, valid, respected, remembered, celebrated. There's no one way. All of the ways is the way, yeah?
right,
And so the fact that you had to say, I'm writing Badass Black Girl series because I don't remember someone considering me, and the first response is not, wow, that's amazing, I can't wait to support. But why Black? Like, because I want to, because I choose me. I choose me in a time when none of the people choose me, right?
right,
And that I found that moment of joy, especially that joy in Blackness, and especially that joy in Black femininity, is like a slap in the face. It's a slap in the face to most. There are some who are like, I don't have to be centered to understand the necessity for Badass Black Girl, for Black Girl Magic, for Black Joy. I don't have to be the center of that to understand that we are part of this bigger world. If you're centering your joy, I can clap for your joy, because I know that that reverberates back to me.
right.
However, if you're clapping for your joy, that means you're not centering me. And if you're not centering me, that means you're not a consumer. And if you're not a consumer, that means I'm not going to be rich. That's really what it comes down to, right?
Of
So,
course.
yay for you. Shout out to you for steadfastness. And I just want to know how we can support Badass Black Girl Series next. I want to know. Like I said, totes, coffee mugs, t-shirts. I need everything.
Thank you, thank you. Well, in the meantime, if people want to join me on Instagram, I'm at Badass Black Girl Books. You can find
Boom.
me here. But I was gonna say, you know what's gonna happen next, right? You mentioned your poem. Now you're gonna
Yes.
have to read something for us. I don't know if you're game.
I am down. For you,
Yeah,
MJ, I will. Do
thank
you
you.
want Black Girl Magic or do you want something from Chlorine Sky, which is, centering a Black girl story? She is in the shadow of her best friend, figuring out who she is despite everyone else's ideas of what beautiful Black girl means. Or Vinyl Moon, which is also not out yet. It comes out in January. And it is in the universe of Chlorine Sky.
Oh,
So you have choices.
let me see. Well, from the new book, I'm too curious. And I'm
Ooh,
going
she
to
said
give,
not released yet.
people will feel that they're part of something very exclusive. The book
I
is not
like
out
this.
yet, and you're listening to a poem from it. That's awesome.
I like this. Okay. Okay. So that's what I'll do. hmm the premise of this story is introducing Angel, who has moved from California. And what I'll do is I'll read the arc letter and then I'll read a poem. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
So, dear reader, if you're reading this, thank you. This is my first arc letter. I wrote Chlorine Sky and was so overwhelmed with the process that I just wanted to see what the world had to say and did not write an arc letter. So now I feel like we are friends, like I can talk to you about most things. And here I am trying to be brave as you. I wrote Vinyl Moon because so many girls I grew up with have survived traumas and bullying and big sistering and various obstacles, coming out on the other side a shell of themselves. So many young people I know have returned to their dreams after high school or college or 10th grade with a whirlwind of questions unanswered and still found the strength to find themselves whole and shining in laughter, in new friends, and music. Vinyl Moon is about the act of rediscovery. It is a story about what it means to not give up on yourself, because there is always a song waiting to be danced to. There is always a fight toward the light. I love books that center our stories on glow and not just gore. I love books that center tough and memorable or mundane and quiet. Voices like ours, dear reader. Today, there are so many people who forget the value of their voice, the power of their solitude. Their words dissipate, lost under the weight of the world. This is our chance to begin again. This is our today again. I hope I didn't confuse you with the repetition. I get caught up in the music of my own hopefulness sometimes. And sometimes I look towards my elders, maybe an advisor or a librarian. When I was in high school, I would skip class to go sit in Miss Crowder's college prep office. It was pretty funny to skip my AP Lit course, where I was misunderstood and admonished for pairing hip hop lyrics with the epic poem by Dante Alighieri. I found Miss Crowder's space to be a haven where I could go dream about running away to a dorm on a college campus far away from my single parent household and the strict rules of English class. I was a writer. I was an artist. I loved to observe and rewrite the world. I wrote stories like these before I ever knew there was an audience who needed them. I wrote stories that no one seemed to tell young people in public. I was angry at the ways I watched my friends be mistreated. I was so angry that no one seemed to care that a girl could be thrown to the ground for the excitement of a crowd. Miss Crowder allowed me in her office every now and again. Sometimes she'd say, "Go to class. I'll be here after school waiting for you." And sometimes I think she could see on my face that I needed her room full of brochures featuring colleges I could only dream about. Imagine my delight when I would be invited to perform on the stages at Vanderbilt, UC Berkeley, FAMU, Syracuse, NYU, Columbia, and Yale. And I think Miss Crowder knew I was lonely and afraid and just trying to find my way. So this is a story about finding your way. This is one of so many of our stories. I hope it brings you closer to sharing your voice. I hope it lights a candle in the cavern where you hide yourself. I hope it feels safe to read these voices and know they are thinking about you being and breathing wherever you are. Remember, if you can hear the music of Angel and Sterling and Brooklyn and California, if you can locate the moon, this is for you too. Have you ever is the poem. Have you ever held your breath because you were afraid of what might come out when you exhale? That's how it feels to be me, holding my breath and swinging for the fences, swinging for my own life. Once upon a time, I was just a girl with a crew of younger look-alikes. Once upon a time, I was just a girl growing into a teenager. My mom worked her fingers to the bone, but she didn't know. She also worked my name to dust. Once upon a time, I stopped holding my breath. I took a deep, deep breath. I inhaled all of the doubt and started to believe everyone before I believed in myself. So that is the beginning.
That's so beautiful. Oh, wow. That's a great cover, too.
Thank you. I'll make sure to send you one.
Oh, thank you. And I have to say, listening to the introduction, I already felt that I was way deep into poetry. And then you said, well, here's the poem. And I'm like, oh, we haven't started yet. Like, your words were so melodious and just, yeah, I agree with Shaw. So beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's funny. My family, like my cousins and some of my friends, are like, stop poeming to me when you talk. I talk like this. This is what you call I'm a forever student. I don't know. I'm always working with the line break. This is how the artist life is. And I'm sure most of us know artists. You see it come out, right? When you cook, there's a flair to an artist that can cook. I cannot cook. I can heat up and I can dial good, but I cannot cook. I can't throw down. And I appreciate those who do. So the artistry remains, and I appreciate that. But that was the introduction.
I feel that I have to thank you for your talent. I mean, because you have it and you share it with the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what I want for my young students. I want them to have the kind of confidence that you exude, where they're able to have the talent, but also use it. Because so many people have the talent, but they're just afraid of having their voice heard, and it's a little sad. And a lot of what you do too, working with young poets, and I mean, you help them a whole lot.
I love working with young people. I think they keep us honest. I think they keep us aware. Adults are great at believing the filters that we've placed around our lives. More times than not, it's a defense mechanism. And sometimes it's just a conditioning, right? It's the thing that you learn to do because it was polite, because it was politically correct, not because it actually saved anyone from anything more than uncomfortable conversations. So working with young people since 2003, 2001. Wow. Yeah. It was 9/11 that brought me into my first classroom as a teaching artist. And I've remained a student of students ever since. They are our life's work, right? But they're also the balm to this the hopelessness that comes back, the ebb and flow of living in a country or living in a world where you see so many inhumane things happen and be just kind of, washed away or ignored or politicized. It is the young people that remind me, like, no, it's the adults that have to get out the way. They got this. They're brilliant, and they tell the truth. They tell the truth despite what it could cost, right? Like the ego is so like it's benign in that world. It's like that doesn't matter when you're talking to young people, especially about art and what they see. And if they know that they won't be punished, right? Like you can speak about what you see and it not be, oh, this is not the right time to talk about that. So
Right.
going into classes in 2001 to 2005 was really when I learned my moment, my muscle. And I thought, if I'm honest with them, I will always be at the front on the front line, because they're going to give me the power to do so. They're going to tell me, nah, miss, that's not what you think it is, right? The lingo, the slang, adults, we think we know. And then you grow out of that moment where you're like, oh, fat doesn't mean fat, right? Bad doesn't mean bad. You learn different ways of seeing, because young people are constantly changing the narrative, they're changing the language, they're changing the culture. They are the culture. So if we are going to really do them due diligence, we want to make sure those doors are open. We don't want to keep those doors closed with the premise of a gatekeeping,
I
culture.
mean, for sure. And I love the way they challenge everything. I mean, as adults, we learn at some level to be part of that culture of silence. Like sometimes you just don't say things. Coming from the Caribbean, particularly, it's learned behavior. Like we don't talk about certain things.
Oh, yeah.
And I walk into a classroom with kids, and part of me thinks, oh yeah, I'm just going to kind of have that veil, and the kids are like, no, 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 no.
Mm-mm.
What about this? What about that? And all their questions, they're avid for answers, and there's no way that you can just
Yes.
fake it with kids. They see right through you,
Yeah.
right through you.
Yeah. And they keep you humble.
They do. Sure, for sure.
I wrote this morning, plants keep you humble. Plants and kids, young people and plants, indoor plants keep me humble. They're just, because I'm not in the school the same. I had to find something that would be like, I don't care about your intentions, right? Let me tell you about impact. Prime example, young people, your intentions are great. That's what I heard. This is what you did, you know? So yeah, you're right. They do keep us on our toes.
For sure. And the book I'm reading from today is Badass Black Girl. So I was really inspired by my students. I mentioned a little bit of it before. So um, I was always into books and reading because I come from a country that is known for its violence. Although it's a very beautiful place and the people there are extraordinary, there is a lot of violence. I can't deny it. And it becomes an important part of your life.
Yeah.
And I was also from a pretty violent family. So books saved me. I read a lot of inspiring books, and I wanted to see more of myself in them. And when I became a teacher, I was reinforced in my belief that I need to write this book because um, years later, my students are dealing with the same kind of questions and they're not finding answers. So this book has quotes, questions, affirmations, but also a lot about our foremothers, right? The
Mm,
Black women who came before us and
mm,
changed our lives, changed the world. So I'm going to read the introduction to the book.
yes.
And it's titled You Are a True Warrior. And it starts with a quote by Oprah. It goes, I have a lot of things to prove to myself. One is that I can live my life fearlessly. So that's how this section starts. Dear Badass Black Girl, you give me 1 second. There's something
Okay.
popping up. Okay, technology, right?
Yes. Start from the top. I want to hear the dear badass black girl. It's gonna be my mantra.
Dear Badass Black Girl, you are a true warrior who inherited the strength, courage, wisdom, love, and dignity of our ancestors. You stand on their shoulders carrying a history of triumph. Yes, it is true. You also still carry some of the pain of yesterday's Black heroines, these creators, innovators, and agents of change, and you are faced with the tremendous struggle of the modern girl of color. But make no mistake, You are strong, and you can conquer whatever challenges the world hands you. Your very existence defies history. Never forget those who broke the unjust rules society once used to limit their progress, those who fought hard to get you to this moment, those who gave light so others could find a way through dark times. Because of them, you get to walk into a restaurant through the front door, sit at the front of the bus, and cast a vote for leaders who represent your ideals. Walk in the freedom they secured for your sake. Be proud of your rich skin, and may your hair be a crown that stands tall. Be proud of your deep rooted cultures. Be proud of the power of those who came before you, as the strength of generations will propel you forward and carry you through difficulties. Be fearless. But as you move through the world, remember your biggest responsibility is to remain thoughtful, to honor where you came from, and to recognize you didn't simply appear and find your own voice. Alice Walker wrote, "How simple a thing it seems to me to know ourselves as we are. We must know our mother's names."
Woo!
This one.
I love it. I'm such a fan of lineage. I think one thing that we've forgotten, and I don't know if it's my generation, I don't know, but we forgot to look back at the people that held those doors open. Our grandmothers, our aunts, the women on the street who served. Like, you have these adoptive family members, these matriarchs of our community who always have stood up and showed out for us. And it's a rarity that we get to call their names into the room that they built. So beautiful. Yes, I love it. And
Let's
yes,
talk a little bit about that. Tell us a little bit about those Black women who have inspired you.
mm, it's difficult. I have a pillar trust. So many of them. Sister Sonia Sanchez, forever. Ida B. Wells, June Jordan, Audre Lorde. Um, and then there's people that I'm constantly finding their work, and their work becomes the light towards this new path, this new understanding of who I am. So the work of Jacqueline Woodson, absolutely. The work of Jasmine Ward, absolutely. The work of Toshi Reagan, Krista Franklin, Miriam Kaba. And then we have the young people who are also, becoming pillars, really. Safia El Hilo and Kimon Felix and Aja Monet. Yeah, I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky to be in a world where their writing and their work is available, for me to study and for me to be held by. Yeah.
For
How
sure,
about you? Who are yours? I
I was
want to
going to
know.
say, I put writers on a pedestal for sure. Black women writers. The first name that comes to mind is Edwidge Zantikat,
Uh-huh.
because when I left Haiti, I really started reading her work. I knew her even when I was still in the Caribbean. Um, but I had never gotten a chance to meet her, hear her speak, and read all of her books. And it just made me feel so human to read her work, the way she talks about just being a Black girl in the world. She makes everything so relatable, and she made me see what was possible in terms of um, becoming a voice
Mhm.
for other people. And Nikki Giovanni has always been
Mhm.
one of my favorite poets. And I had the opportunity to interview her recently. I
Nice.
mean, writers really rock this world. And I'm so thankful for all the writers before me. Um, I did not get a chance to really, really know my grandmothers because by the time I was born, they were already very old. So they both passed before I was 15. But I saw the impact that they had on my parents, and my
Mhm.
parents were such great storytellers.
Mm.
And everything I am is because of those stories. I remember we always had dinner together as a family after school, after work, and my parents just telling me about their day was storytelling. There was dialogue, there was tension, there was like carefully chosen descriptions.
Yes.
And I know that it all came from the generations before them and the generations before that. And I felt so proud to be part of that, to be sitting at that table, listening to those stories and knowing that years ago they were sitting with their parents, listening to stories.
Mm.
And I started imagining that generational gift with there were images I could associate with that gift, and it was just so beautiful.
I love that. I love that you've come from a home of storytelling. I don't. I don't. I think maybe my grandparents, my grandfather, he loved the blues. So I caught a lot of stories from him telling me about that. And my grandmother, when she had her guard down, she was the reader of the family and she introduced me to reading. Um, but that storytelling over dinner, I relish in the idea.
Tell me a little bit about that moment when you knew that writing was going to be an important part of your life.
Hmm. So I was in fourth grade. My teacher, Mrs. Meeks, assigned us writing. I think we had to make a book from from the book cover to the book art to the story inside. And I was so enamored with the process and so proud of it, that at that moment I said, okay, this is what I want to do forever. And then I was telling someone the other day, I like, do you remember that game Life? It's an old game like Monopoly, Life, Shoots and Ladders. It was the board game era. Life is, I think it was anxiety inducing because it got you prepared for life was the idea. You had a paycheck day. You had you received like a this is your career card, and you look on the back and you know how much you got paid, and so you know where you fell in the economic system. And I had to go look and see what I was going to make as an adult writer, and it was like listed as a very poor profession. And I thought, wait, what? I'm gonna be well, it's a poor profession. Well, let me see what the rich profession is. Mind you, fourth grade, fifth grade, this is what I know. And then I go look, and it's the most I think paid career was doctors. And so I said, yeah, I could be a pediatrician. I like kids, they're great. So I'm going to be a pediatrician Monday through Friday, and on Saturday and Sunday, I'm going to write. I decided I was going to put those two checks together, already ready. And then I saw blood for the first time. I like hurt my arm, split it open, had to get stitches, passed out when I saw it. I was done. I was like, I'm just have to write more books because I can't do the blood thing anymore. Fast forward, I started finding new ways to write. And it began with me thinking I'm only going to do novels to, okay, but I want to write more like immediate things. How can I do that? Journalism was my first attempt at writing in the world. And I was really lucky. I was really lucky because I received an internship. And within a year of me having this internship, I received an internship offer here in New York City. I was 23, still in college, and I had a 2-year-old. And I received this job offer that basically would give me the job that I was, going to college to get. So I said, well, I'm just going to go and take my kid. I'm going to write hip hop journalism. Totally fine. At that point, I started dabbling in poems, but I wasn't doing poems for a living because I had not seen it done. Right. At that point, I think, I was very clear. Maya Angelou was, the goddess of poetry. Nikki Giovanni, the goddess of poetry. Like there were people that you knew, but they were so esteemed that I thought, oh, they're real adults. I have to wait to get to that era. So I'm just going to write these journalism things and my little open mic poems on the side. Fast forward even further, the internship ends. I receive a job offer that extends my stay here in New York for 2 years. That ends. Poetry is the thing that I find. Poetry is the island that I find because in writing for this journalism machine, I start becoming incredibly aware that the only things they want me to write about are pushing the record sales. They don't necessarily want the truth. And so when I'm interviewing an artist, and I had been in plenty of instances and spaces where it wasn't a safe space for a woman writer. Um, and in this case, it was just like enough. I think he threatened to pistol with me in the interview for no reason, but because he could. And it was his friend who was also there that got in the way of it. But it was that moment, it just clicked for me that I can't do this. Like, I keep putting myself in harm's way. I go back to my editor, and they're telling me that I can't write the truth because of advertising dollars. Where can I write the truth? And overnight, I turned back to poetry, and all these things that I was just writing here and there, I began to just fully focus on it. And because I saw the business of journalism and the deadlines, I was used to the quick turnover. I had to start putting that to work with the poetry. How do I make those two align so that I can still be honest, be in spaces where this honesty is appreciated, but also grow from it, grow into a career. So I guess 1998, I've been writing since 1998 in some form or fashion, as an adult writer or freelance. And since 2001, I've been a full-time writer and artist.
That's wonderful. And I think it's a perfect segue to the question that Brent has.
Okay.
His question is, what would you recommend to young writers to stay truthful and avoid falling into the culture of silence? Because that's the situation you're describing, a situation where you're realizing, I cannot tell my truth. What am I going to do about it?
Yeah.
So we got your story, but do you have some other tips for people?
So the funny thing is, there are always going to be spaces that are trying to limit who speaks and what they say.
Of course.
Always. That's going to be our human condition until the end of time, right? Because there's a profit to silence. There's a profit to our pain. There's a profit to us feeling marginalized, marginalizing other. There's profit there. So people don't move from a space of abundance. They don't move from a space of wellness and well-being unless there's like something to gain from it. And if you can find hope in yourself, then like, what do you need to pay for this for, right? Why do you need to go to MFA program if you can study those books at the free library? That said, challenge the system. Challenge what you think is the only way to do it. I thought poetry could only be, I would only be considered a poet if I was published. And then I had toured Europe for 2 years with only chapbooks, only handmade books for 2 years. Four different tours in 2 years that sustained me and my household. I had never imagined a life like that because I was told it couldn't happen, right? Remember this life game. I was told that doesn't exist because it is not right. We can't tax it. We can't make you go to school for it. Like, if you can just figure it out, that's no, absolutely not. No way. So to assure that you're not boxing yourself up, find spaces to share poems where you feel your most self. That could be church. That could be barbershops. That could be the bodega. That could be at the ocean. That, you can make up spaces with your friends. You can ask after school spaces, can we use this? You can make space for other voices to feel like they're in a safe area to share. That was the question, right? Where do you?
Kind of how advice for the youth so that they can feel safe telling their truth. And what I'm going to piggyback on what you said, because what I was going to say too is that make sure that you create your community, meaning
Yes.
that you have those people who will always have your back, because sometimes you will question yourself, because that's what the system does. The system gaslights you, so that sometimes you wonder, am I a troublemaker? Am I making too much out of my experience?
Yeah.
And then you need those people to tell you, no, they're trying to silence you. You need to speak your truth, because
Mm-hmm.
some people are relying on you to get out of their dark place.
Oh
They're
yeah.
relying on your poetry to remember that they're living a life worth
Mm-hmm.
living.
Mm.
And yeah, finding a space where you belong, finding people who are really part of your tribe, who are not going to bring you down, bring your poetry down, that's really, really important.
Yeah. And I would say, even if you find that, okay, there are a lot of spaces that already exist that may not be welcoming to the trans writer or the black and brown writer or the disabled writer, they may not be open to these different viewpoints, right? That are not homogenized. Go there anyway. Fight the urge to only be around who you know, and you make the space know you. But you're right. You got to find your people. You got to find your tribe. You have to know, I can turn here and be okay. But also, I'm not afraid to let my poems exist in this world, because this world is actually a part of me. And you're not going to, like, they can't quarantine your greatness. They can't quarantine your creation because it makes them feel away. So it's up to you to constantly turn to your people, do these poems, and then push that work out. So you make bigger space. So you broaden the space. So you take the hinges off the doors, as DJ Khaled said. You take them off. So everybody knows that they're welcome. You know what I mean? Like, everybody's welcome. If it's the word, you're welcome. If it's hate speech, let's have a discussion about it. You make people stand up for what's right and what's wrong.
And what you're saying actually leads to to an answer, maybe to the next question. A Mighty Blaze is asking, what are your impressions of the publishing industry's attempts to make publishing more inclusive to all kinds of writers? And we talked about spaces and how some spaces will be welcoming, others will be not. And one thing that I want to say about the publishing industry is, it's a money game. At the end of the day, we talked about, yeah, people focus on the dollar. And the sad thing is that, yes, there is this wave of the industry attempting to be more inclusive, but the truth is, it could have been more inclusive like years ago, because if they had invested into writers back then, they had the capacity of making those books sell a long time ago. I, am- I'm happy that I'm finding more authors that I can relate to, more authors whose voices should have been heard a long time ago. But part of me is sad that it took everything happening in the news recently for us to finally see more of those authors, because they always existed. It's not like suddenly you have all those Black authors, all those Latinx authors.
It's
They
like this
were there. They were
world
just
appeared.
getting published. It's not
You're
like
right.
they were born yesterday.
It's just the world appeared all of a sudden, you know. I actually think you just answered the question for me. That was a word. That was a testimony. Absolutely. Those are my impressions. My impressions are, if you are only publishing a certain voice or a certain look because of the promised money or fanfare that comes with it, or the shame that you may feel and that you've been called out, then that means it's just that easy to take away as well. So I'm not impressed. Not impressed by your new series. I'm not impressed. I'm impressed by the writers who continue despite you. That's who impresses me. I'm impressed by the young people who find those writers despite you. That's who I'm impressed with. I'm impressed by these individually small presses that come up, these individuals that, get in these collaborations and they say, we're going to publish ourselves. I published myself and friends for at least 10 years. And it was the scariest thing I ever did, but I used my income tax check for that every year because I knew if I don't bet on me, then who will?
Right.
They're telling me that I don't have an audience and I just performed to 2,000 people in a theater out of this country. I don't even live here. And it was 2,000 people. And I performed and got a standing ovation. And you told me in the city I live in that I don't have an audience. If I believed them, who would I be now? Right? So my impression of the publishing industry catching up is welcome. We've been here, you know, take your shoes off at the door. I
Hats
don't
off
know.
to hats off to all those small publishers, those indie
Sure enough.
publishers who were celebrating
Yes.
uh, our voices all along.
Yes.
Because there's not a lot of them.
Yes.
And yeah, where would we be if we
Yeah.
believed anything that the world told us?
Yeah. Yeah. I also want to shout out Danielle Clayton. She did some beautiful work with We Need Diverse Books, which was an initiative. I think she started out as a librarian. She's a fantasy writer. She's one of the 6 authors of Blackout, which is like the first time ever that, this 6 Black women come together to write a novel where all of the stories intersect. And it's a young adult novel, and it's great what she does in that way, that she's always been thinking about the voices that are left out of the conversation.
And I'm going to have my own shout out too. I want to say hi to my friends at Mango Publishing, who always recognized the importance of diversity in publishing. And one book that I'm completely in love with is Marita Golden's recent book. You might know Marita Golden's Saving Our Sons. That's one of her most famous books, but she also recently published another book that is worth checking out. It's about the strong Black woman. We all know that stigma that we carry. We're supposed to be strong all the time and um, superhuman, and she really questions it and gives a good she really analyzes the different perspectives on it, and it's an amazing book.
Yes, I can't wait to check it out. I love Marita Golden's work. And shout out to my editor, Phoebe Ye, who not only worked with myself, Nick Stone, she also worked with Walter Dean Myers, like, with Monster. So I just feel really great to be in the conversation, but I also feel like I've already been a part of the conversation because I'm in the classrooms with these young people, and there's no stopping us. I don't mind the writing and resilience conversation, but I want to be mindful that if you are doing the work, you don't need a publishing house to tell you that you're doing the work. All right. It would help because the distribution is great. The marketing is amazing. Like, you have a team that helps you. But the reality is the work is happening regardless of how many ripples you can see right now. The effect will come back. You will see it tenfold with the students' lives that you change. And that can be in class, that can be after school, that can be online. Do not think there is only one way to impact the world with your writing. There are many ways. So just don't give up.
This is perfect. Perfectly said. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to have this conversation with you today. What a treat.
Thank you. I can't wait to get your book in my hands and see more of what you're doing and support you. This has been really, really lovely. Thank you.
I love your work, and I will continue to follow your career. You're an inspiration to all. Thank you. Thank you for everything you do.
Thanks, MJ. I'm trying not to cry. Not gonna do it. I'm gonna drink this water.
And this is it. So goodbye, everyone. Thank you for listening. And
I'm gonna go look at the comments now because these are nice people. These are the comments I'll read. Yes. Hi, Gail from Drew University. Shout out to you. Thank you, Lapika and Sylvie and Delaney. They said we had an amazing discussion. I agree. We should go ahead and have this transcription made into a nice little pamphlet so you can walk around with it, put it in your bag. And when you forget who you are, the light that you be, just look at this, look at our conversation. I think that's Can we put that up? I think that should happen.
I agree.
Second that motion so we can get it going.
I second it. And I see Emily is here. Hi, Emily Fine.
Hi, Emily. Bye, Jason. Shout out to Jason Reynolds as well. He teaches me everything I know when it comes to this publishing game. This was really beautiful. I appreciate you so much. Have a great Saturday, MJ.
You too, and thank you so much to the Sunnyvale Island Writers Conference organizers. It was fabulous.
Yes, Sanibel represent.